Synthetic identity fraud is one of the many ways that fraudsters can infiltrate an organization. So there's identity theft when you're actually stealing the real credentials, real information of an individual, and then trying to use those to open a new account, for example. Synthetic identity fraud, you either are manipulating information or completely fabricating an identity. And so that's why it has the concept of being this piece-parted, patchwork, Frankenstein type of an identity approach, where you're actually taking pieces of real information or a lot of fictitious information, and it's very difficult to link back to an actual victim. Typically, synthetic identity fraud doesn't necessarily have a victim, so it makes it very difficult for organizations to wait for the consumer to notify them that their information has been misused. Overall, there are so many different types of data that organizations ask for, and when those pieces of data are not seen together or verified in a consistent manner, it makes it a lot easier for a fraudulent application to come in as a synthetic. Companies that are most vulnerable to synthetic identity fraud have typically been the financial institutions. So retail banks, credit card issuers, wealth management companies, others that are involved in the payment processes for consumer transactions. According to the Federal Reserve, synthetic identity fraud costs U.S. financial institutions over $6 billion, and much of that is attributed to opening new lines of credit, credit cards, and other payment instruments. And a synthetic identity scheme often starts out very innocently. They may actually pay their bills properly, operate like a legitimate consumer until they've built enough trust. And then they bust out in that scenario where they all of a sudden go silent after amassing a significant amount of funds or extending a credit line. All of those are real challenges. From the beginning of 2020, we actually started to see that synthetic identity fraud was on the decline each month. We hadn't seen any spikes. It seemed as if financial institutions and other organizations are really having an increased focus on trying to detect early. Starting in mid-March through April, we've actually seen synthetic identity fraud increase over 100%. Fraud detection and manual review especially has been a real challenge for many organizations during the response to the COVID pandemic. They're in remote locations. Some of the employees are not working at this time. So being adaptive and responding to all the channels that your consumers are using and using a combination of digital and physical attributes will be really important in the fraud mitigation methods for most organizations.